It was June 13th, 2021. Me and my family were down at the lake. My mom, my dad, a few of my brothers and sisters. Kids were swimming, fishing, having a cookout. Beautiful day. When the phone call came in that my brother Rick had been in a motorcycle accident and he was gone. Fast forward 2 years to August 21st, 2023. I was at an event much like this, and when I turned my phone back on, the messages came in. My best friend, my big brother, Brian, was gone. And as I sat with the grief of that, I learned a few things about myself really quick. One of the things that I learned is that I was underliving. I was saying not yet to all the important things in life and saying yes to all the wrong things. And with that is as I sat with it, and I've presented to over 18,000 people over the last decade, and I've sat across the table from thousands of people, I realized that that's not just my story, that's your story. There are things that you're saying not yet to in your life that if you had the confidence and clarity, you would say yes to them. But what ends up happening is because we don't have that information, we choose to make the decisions we do with the information we have, and that's normal human nature inside of it. So I applaud you all for coming out tonight. Whatever you came to get, I hope I can give you, because you're looking for something so that you can stop saying not yet and start saying yes. Because if inside of retirement, what we're going to find out about estate planning is it's not just when we die, it's from every day from here forward of what's going to happen to us. Because every single thing that involves in your finance, in your retirement, and the time spent is the estate and legacy that you have left to give. So I assume we all came to learn about estate, right? I hope so, because you're at estate class. Financially, what are some other concerns that we have inside of retirement? I'm going to put estate on the board because that's why we're here. Anything else that keeps us up at night, gives us concern? Social Security. When to claim it? Do I take it at 62? Do I take it at 70? Do I take it at 67? Inside of that, so that's income. And typically when people say when to claim Social Security, it comes into the aspect of, well, how much should I save for retirement? And how much can my investments then backfill for my Social Security? So I'm going to put investments on the board as well, because that's what supports our income. Okay. Real estate investments end up being investments and income inside of it, of how we generate that.
Yeah, but I don't know that many people that are really that knowledgeable about real estate. I've met others that are knowledgeable about others, but not real estate.
What other concerns do we have? Things that may keep us up?
Avoiding probate.
Avoiding probate. What else inside of probate? Is it just in how do I pass my assets as efficiently as possible? There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Tax. Not only, as I said, estate starts from today going forward is what you're going to learn. How do I pay less taxes, and how do I make sure that the government is not my largest benefactor? There is somebody that I love more than my Uncle Sam that I want to have that money. Okay. Okay. Trusts come up here into the estate. Anything else that keeps us up financially at night?
Wills.
Wills, okay, that'll fall into our estate. What about aging? Anybody have any concerns about that? Okay, so is it fair if I put healthcare up there? Okay. Okay, I think we've got a pretty good list. So inside of your estate, your financial world, everything that I put on the board there, every one of your concerns, after presenting to over 18,000 people sitting across the table from thousands of people, every concern you have inside of your financial world, inside of your retirement, inside of your estate, falls into these 5 categories. The fun part about this is that when I say everybody, this is, I just got a notification today that I passed my test 17 years ago. So it's been 17 years of doing this inside of it. So if we take it and everybody that we talk to, we have investments, our 401k, our IRA, our 403b, our TSP, the money that's down at the bank. We have taken this money and we have saved it for a reason, because there's only two things you can do with every dollar you've ever saved and invested. You can either spend it or you can leave it, because you're not getting out of this alive and you can't take it with you. Okay? So our investments, what we've done is to give ourselves income. Number one concern of retirees is outliving your money. How do I make sure that I have enough? And once I have enough, how do I spend it doing the things that I love, creating the experiences that I want, and also creating those experiences with the people that I love and want to spend my time with? Money is not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. Okay? It's kind of important, and income allows those things to become easier. But when we have that income, there's the tax consequence. How did we save it? When it comes to taxes, if you didn't know, taxes will be your largest expense throughout the end of your life. More than your mortgage, more than your rent, more than your health care, because it shows up every single year, whether you want to or not. If we don't do it correctly, we're always going to pay taxes. We are going to end tonight very specifically with taxes, not only for yourself, but also for what we leave behind. Because what we're going to find is that if we leave $1 million in an IRA and $1 million in a Roth when we die, those are not the same gifts. $1 million in an IRA, it gets 10 years to be continue to be left in the account and grow. And let's say the million becomes 2 million. Loved ones don't do any tax planning. They take it all out in 10 years, at the end of 10 years. Of the $2 million, it all becomes ordinary income, the highest type of tax you can pay. The government takes about 800,000 of it. Your loved ones get 1.2 million. Uncle Sam became your largest benefactor unless you had one person you left it to. You give that same Roth, it gives the exact same 10 years to grow, but it grows completely tax-free. So when we take that $2 million out, government gets zero. So we're going to end tonight talking about taxes. I felt passionate enough about this that over a decade ago, I went back and got a master's in accounting, emphasis in taxation, not to do your taxes. I don't even do my own. That's boring. Okay? But to be able to have the strategic conversation of how do we get out of this life with less taxes? Because every dollar we don't give to Uncle Sam is another dollar that we can spend with or on our loved ones, doing the things we love with the people we love. Our health care. Inside of our health care, whether we are not 65 yet and the only reason we're working is because we want health care, or once we turn 65 and we go on Medicare, and then we have to control our income, because if we don't control our income, there's a secret tax inside of your Medicare where if you have too much income, they charge you more for your government-mandated health insurance that you have to buy, where it can cost anywhere from $200 to $800 per person if you break the rules. So it's very, very important that we look at this. And if you're under 65 and you're thinking the only reason I'm working is because I'm not paying $30,000 a year for an Affordable Care Act plan, which sounds really counterintuitive there of I said affordable and then said $30,000 for health insurance. There are strategies inside of this that we can build that if our investments are held correctly and they give us the right type of income so it shows up on our 1040 on our taxes to be the right type, where we can have free and or subsidized health care. We have clients that are 60 years old that just retired. They're going to live on $200,000 a year and their health care premium is $37 from the federal government. Because it all depends on what type of income shows up on the front page of your 1040. Lastly, why we're all here is your estate. Oh, helps if I can spell. And legacy. And the reason why I draw a difference between those two is your estate is what you happen to die with in hand. something you didn't spend, something you didn't use, your home, your cars, what was left in your bank account, your 401k, that's your estate. Your legacy is everything you do from this day forward with the people you love. Spending your time, energy, and money with them, things that you can provide for them as far as experiences. My oldest son's name is Jack because my grandpa Jack in his retirement spent his time, energy, and money on me, and I felt like that was the best way I could pay forward what he gave me is truly a legacy by naming my son after him. So everything we put here on the board is your estate as it currently sits today. And if we want to maximize our estate, if we want to pass on the most, whether it's memories, whether it's financial amounts, it all comes into these 5 areas. So let's start into the type of estate that you guys came to learn about tonight. So at our firm, Choules Financial, we're 2 blocks this way. So if you know where Darla's Daycare used to be, go to the Betos, turn left. We're the first house there on the left. We believe that living a life of yes is what everybody deserves to do. And that comes from whether it's taking that bucket list trip you've always planned and have never done, whether it's eating at your favorite restaurants without checking your bank balance first, or whether it's doing the things you love with the people you love. That's the key to retirement. It's the key to life. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have the confidence and clarity to do so, but that comes from having our plans all put together, all 5 areas working together. So inside of our estate, there are some key considerations that we need to ask ourselves when it comes to what type of estate plan do we need. We're now going to talk about when it's all over or when we're nearing the end. This is what you guys all came for in this aspect. Key estate planning considerations. What happens if I become disabled or incapacitated? Who will make decisions for me? How will I ensure my assets go to the right people at the right time? Will factors outside of my control, like taxes or legal processes, impact the legacy I leave behind? While the tax laws that are in existence right now allegedly are permanent, tax laws are only as permanent as the people are in Washington. Just like if you happen to inherit money from an IRA prior to 2020, you could stretch that investment out over your whole life and just take a little bit at a time, and now it's down to 10 years. They've significantly shortened that, which then spikes the amount of money you have to take out to manage your taxes. Typically, our loved ones are our children. We end up dying when they're in their highest earning years. Potentially their home's paid off, their kids are moved out, they don't have any deductions. They're making the most with the least amount of deductions, and now they have to take out the money we get. Legal processes that can change, and why we want to make sure that we have a plan starting today that addresses those. Okay, a default plan. If you don't have a plan, the government has one for you. So if you die without a will, without a trust, without anything, there is a legal way that the government doesn't keep the money. It goes to somebody in your bloodline. If you've ever heard about somebody getting money from their long-lost uncle, because there is a pattern of, let's say I died, first thing they're going to do is say, okay, is he married? Okay, he's not married. Does he have any children? No, he doesn't have any children. It goes to my parents. Are my parents alive? No, they're not alive. Then it goes down to my siblings. Okay, my siblings, are any of them alive? No, none of them are alive. Did I have any nieces and nephews? And it goes out 7 generations until it finds somebody that at some point in time you had somebody related to you, and that's how you end up with the long-lost uncle that leaves money to someone. Okay, a default plan, a public and costly detour through probate. Okay, it's time consuming. When you die and you have to go through probate, it can take months. Here in Utah, it's pretty proficient to get through. I've watched my clients in California wait 2 years to sit in front of a judge to get anything settled. You imagine somebody you love, or you yourself, die, and they can't do anything with your house, your bank account, any of your investments. Let's say you have a mortgage. They then have to reach into their pocket and pay the mortgage for that time frame until the judge can decide, until you can get in front of them. With my brother who died, Brian, he was divorced, bless you, and had 2 minor children, bless you. It took us 18 months to be able to get things settled so that I could put those assets in a trust that I could manage for the kids, because my brother would have crawled out of his grave if his ex-wife would have ended up with his 401k, his house, his bank account, and his assets inside of it. Because he had a mortgage and I cared about those kids, I, out of my own money, paid the mortgage for 18 months for the house to sit there empty until we could get it put into the trust and then make sure it was preserved for the kids. So I have lived what happens when somebody dies without a plan. Costly. I spent more on legal fees to create the trust after the fact and probate and lawyer fees than the trust would have cost my brother day one that would have solved all of this, and it would have been done by the time he was in the ground. They're also public. It's a public court proceeding. If somebody wants to snoop, they can see everything that happens with your assets when you're gone. This is the plan the government has for you if you don't have one. This is my least favorite, so at least have a plan. So what's the next plan that people use? Is a will, last will and testament. What does a will do that's different than what the court has? Is it lets you name your beneficiaries for your assets. You can say, hey, these are my children, this is who I would like it to go to. Those children still have to go in front of the judge, still have to file the probate fee. When I did it, it was $500 for one brother and $500 for the other in Idaho, where they lived inside of it. And it allows you to nominate guardians for your minor children. What it does not do is it does not avoid probate. They still have to pay the fee, they still have to wait in line, they still have to do it. If you have land or assets in multiple states, if you do not have this put in place, what we're going to get to next, they're going to have to go to probate in each one of those states. They're going to have to hire an attorney in each state to represent them, or drive themselves there to then file the probate fees or cause everything like that. Did you have a question?
Is there a max, or when does probate start? At what amount of money?
$1. Anything that you own, for them to legally take claim to it, if somebody wants it, they have to become named your personal representative, and then they're in charge of distributing your assets. Okay. A will offers no protection or assistance if you become disabled or incapacitated during your lifetime. A will does not allow somebody to be your personal representative for health care. Okay, so if you become incapacitated, somebody then has to go in front of the judge to then get to be custodian over the top of you to be able to make those choices for you. All right, when we talk about a living trust, we're talking about revocable trusts. There's a whole slew of different types of trusts, but for 99% of the people in the room, a revocable trust is what we're talking about today. Okay, how a living trust works. A living trust is a legal entity you create to hold your assets. Inside of that, you transfer the title of your assets, like your home or your investment accounts, into the trust. You remain in complete control as the trustee, but able to manage, buy, and sell assets just as before. So for me, I got my trust in 2012. As soon as I knew that my firstborn was coming, I wanted to make sure I knew who was going to take care of him if my wife and I happened to die, where my assets would go inside of it. In that time frame, I think we've put 6 different houses now in the times that we have moved. Even though I put it in the trust, it's still my asset. I still have full control over it. It's not a taxable event. You can move items in and out inside of it. But what it allows you to do is the day that something happens, like with my brother, if he had a trust, I would have been able to access his money to pay the mortgage immediately. I would have been able to rent the house out and give those kids income to help make up for their father being gone and having some cash. But instead, I had to wait. Yes?
How much is it to start a trust?
So trusts, from what I see, usually run in the ballpark of $4,000 to $6,000. There may be cheaper ones. And again, it all depends on how in depth it goes and what type of attorney you go to inside of it. I will put it this way. If you're going to die with $5,000 left in your bank account, I promise you, after settling my 2 brothers' estates, I would have rather had a trust 100% of the time than 1 ounce of that money that was left. I would have rather even paid for their funerals out of pocket than have to sit and deal with everything. With my brother Rick, I'm not going to say he was a hoarder, but I'm not going to say he wasn't. But we opened up envelopes from Wells Fargo that were 6 years old. Then we had to call Wells Fargo, find out if there was money in the account, find out if he owed them money. Huge headache. Who's their CPA? Who's their attorney? Who do they pay their home and auto to? All these different pieces. So when it comes to your estate plan, and there's some technology we have that I don't believe, this doesn't have that slide in it, does it? Okay. We have a technology that allows you to be able to aggregate all these things together so the day that you're not here, it's not searched through every paper, envelope, folder that ever existed in your entire life. Needle in a haystack? Yes, that's what it is. And so that's a huge piece of your estate, is not only naming the right beneficiaries and the right people, but making sure that it's actually put together in a place that makes it easy. The ones that are left behind are already in a grieving state, and then having to deal with the not fun part as well as missing you. Huge, huge piece. When it comes to the magic of a trust, is a trust never gets sick, becomes incompetent, or dies when you can no longer manage it, your chosen successor trustee seamlessly steps in. So for my parents, I'm the successor trustee. If they were not able to take care of themselves, take care of their assets, I don't have to go to a judge and get conservatorship, get appointed their personal representative, anything while they're alive. I can take it and make those decisions on their behalf for them. So my father ended up with Parkinson's, and it ended up stilling his mind. He was incapable of making decisions for himself. Had my mother passed away and she wasn't available, I would have been able to make those healthcare decisions for my dad. I'm getting ahead of myself because that's 2 slides from now. But because the trust owns the asset, there's nothing to go to probate. So when we put the house in there, everything like that, it is a legal document that says who's entitled to it. You don't need a judge to then give you permission to touch those assets. So comparing a will and a trust, is probate required with a will? Yes. Is it public record? Yes. Manages incapacitation? No. And can lead to costly conservatorship to make sure that you can be appointed to make those decisions. Asset distribution, 12 to 24 months. For my brother, it took 18 months to get it done. Overall control, you give control to the court system. The judge still has influence on how things should be distributed. With a trust, no assets are managed, or is there probate? No. Their assets are managed and distributed privately. Is it public record? No. Manages incapacitation? Yes. The successor trustee manages your assets for you. Asset distribution, as you specify, even over many years. I do have people, I have clients that they either have a kid that has a drug problem, a spending problem, or they have a special needs child that they go, okay, I cannot leave them this money because they're not capable. So inside of it, I have a 5-year-old, his name is Ford. Ford is autistic. I don't know if he will ever live on his own. So I have to have a special needs trust inside of there so that those assets never hit Ford. Granted, he's 5 right now, so we have a long time inside of it, but if he cannot care for himself, and I want to make sure that he's entitled to his SSDI, he's entitled to his Medicaid to make sure that he can be taken care of by the system that we're here. If I leave that money directly to him, he will have to spend all of those assets to ever get any of the benefit that he's looking for. So we want to make sure that we have things in place to not only control and protect those that are capable but maybe not willing to spend it responsibly, and then also those who can't. Yes?
How often do you have like a secondary trustee or something like that, a backup trustee?
Most trusts have that inside of it. So you'd be the trustee to your own trust. A successor trustee would be if you became incapacitated to take care of it.
Even for the other trustee, because like with my dad, my sister was the trustee, but then she decided to bring me into just in case something happened to her, then somebody would know what was going on besides just,
Yeah, so
she went and nobody knew what was going on.
inside of that, my sister Teresa is actually a successor trustee with me, and we have to agree on things on what happens. but for the sake of keeping it simple, I just said that I'm it, but my sister Teresa is actually that. And when it comes to our healthcare directives, so how we make sure that we can take care of them when something health-wise happens, Advanced Healthcare Directive appoints a trusted person to make medical decisions if you cannot, outlines your wishes for medical care and end-of-life choices. My sister Kelly is not a successor trustee, but she's a nurse, so she actually has the Advanced Healthcare Directive of being able to make medical decisions because that's her world. Okay, my parents thought, I manage money for a living, well, it'll be easy for me to handle money. I have not the slightest about the human body. Okay, I own one, but I don't know much about it. Okay. Durable power of attorney for finances appoints a trusted person to manage your financial affairs, pay bills, manage investments if you become incapacitated. This is a huge one. What I see all the time, there's 2 no-nos that if you're taking notes tonight, absolutely that you want to write down. First one is do not put anybody else on your checking account. My grandparents did it to my mom. I see it happen all the time. They say, well, if somebody needs to be able to write checks out of my checking account, I'll just put them on the account. If their name is on the top of the check, that means that that is part of their assets. They're on the ownership line. They blow the stoplight out here, they injure somebody, they get sued. That asset now becomes exposed to their actions. You can make them a signer on the account, or if you just have the durable power of attorney for finances, it rectifies that. Second one is please, and I believe this is the next slide, so I'll just change right to it. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. When it comes to your home, do not put your children on the title of your home. Okay? There's a few reasons. A lot of people look at it and say, well, Devin, I'm trying to get out of Medicare clawback. I want to be able to leave something to the kids. The bigger problem is my parents bought their house for $40,000 in 1978. They sold it last year for over $400,000. Okay? Because of the step up in basis or the personal exemption of $500,000 for a primary residence, they paid $0 in taxes. Let's assume mom wanted to put me on there to try to look broke on paper. Dad died in May. I don't know when mom's going to die. But when they pass away, if it's in my name, there is no step up in basis. The $40,000 that they paid is now my starting point. If I sell it for $500,000, I now owe taxes on $460,000. If mom dies with it in hand, it's called a step up in basis. There are no taxes left. Does not matter if you bought it for $400,000, it becomes $10 million, no taxes. Same goes with your brokerage account, your after-tax investments. The day you die, all the gains inside of it, all the what I'm going to call sins, all the taxes are completely wiped out, and your loved ones don't pay anything on those accounts. So making sure that we title things correctly and hold them correctly until the date of death is super important. Hey, most people worry about the federal estate tax, where they say, I don't want to give 40% of what I've earned over my lifetime to the federal government. Well, the good news is that the federal estate tax is $15 million per person. So if you're married filing joint, and unless your estate's over $30 million, you will not pay federal estate tax. But if it's going to be, if you look out 20 years from now and you own a bunch of real estate that goes from being, pasture ground to all of a sudden somebody wants to build a Walmart on it and now it's worth tens of millions of dollars or whatever it may be, you need to have some planning in place to make sure that 40% of that money doesn't just go to Uncle Sam because they want it in a 6-month period after you die.
Now, you're talking about that's the amount when they die.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to pay it, not like us when we sell our house, which is completely different.
Yep. I'm talking about when you die, the estate tax that comes there.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we have some planning there, again, with our taxes of what's going to happen. Now, you can make gifts throughout your life. That's okay inside of it. But the bigger piece we're trying to get out of this is how we title things, how we hold things for the day we die matters. And it matters a lot. If you as you pointed out, you didn't want to give everything to Uncle Sam. You'd rather make sure your loved ones got it. having the proper titling, beneficiaries. Speaking of beneficiaries, one thing that we want to check, I see this happen far too often. Somebody gets a divorce, they forget to change the beneficiary on the 401k that they work at, they die, ex-spouse gets it. They forget that they have life insurance, they don't change the beneficiary, ex-wife, ex-husband gets the money, not the new spouse, not the new family inside of it. So one thing that you're going to want to do with your homework tonight is go home and check who your beneficiaries are. If you have an IRA, 401k, 403b, 457 TSP, there are listed beneficiaries that you can put on those. Skips wills, trust, probate, you can list exactly who you want it to go to, and you don't have to worry about anything we've talked about so far because those are beneficiary-driven accounts. Go home, check your titling, make sure that they're correct. I see it all the time as well, and in fact, last night's class, one thing that I see far too often is they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to put my most responsible child at 100%, and then they'll be taken care of distributing it afterwards. Not only does this it invite bad acting. I don't know if you've done this. I get to see it by virtue of where I'm at, and even in my own family, as soon as you add death and money in the situation, people act absolutely insane. So don't do it that way. The other portion is if it's IRA money, now it becomes very difficult to get it into their name, because if they want to take it out themselves, now they're going to have to pay the taxes at their elevated tax rate to then get it over. Just split it on paper. So much easier. It's not going to cause any fights. It's going to be very clean, and the taxes will be less. Questions?
Where do you put it on paper? Where do you put it down?
So wherever your IRAs or your qualified retirement accounts, your retirement accounts are, they will be in there that you can call whoever it is, and you can change it right there. Okay, it's not anything you'll just write on a piece of paper in the kitchen. You'll get very specific paperwork from the account of where it's held.
We want to do a trust. We were trying to figure out, my brother was telling me to go online and do it. I've never done it. I don't know if it's something you go online or if you go to an agency and sit down and get a lawyer. I don't know which way to go.
So inside of it, with technology today, there are cheaper routes where you could say, hey, I'm going to hop online and I'm going to use a digital estate plan. The problem that I see with that is I don't know better, just like I assume you don't know better, is if the trust is worth its salt at all. Just because we paid for it and we assume it came from a reputable place doesn't mean it is. I like the ability that I can ask questions when I have concerns, I can read it, I can talk to them. So inside of that, I like the human experience more than, hey, can I find something online that's a lot cheaper and hope that it's everything that I needed it to be. Yeah, you're going to pay more, but I would assume your results is going to be more higher probability of success.
So when I retire, I want to live in Wyoming and in Utah, but mostly in Wyoming, have residence so I can.
6 months, 1 day.
Yeah. Do you need to have like trusts for both states?
Typically, no, but you are going to make sure that your assets that are held in different states are all titled into the trust. Okay? But if we're going to talk about this, we'll go down this just for a little bit because I love tax schemes and things like this of legally how to not give the government extra money. If you wanted to live, her question was if I want to live in Wyoming and I want to live in Utah, and my answer that you could hear me say was 6 months and 1 day. Well, if you live 6 months and 1 day, you're a resident of Wyoming, but what you have to make sure you do is change your driver's license, your voting records, because if you have your driver's license here, you have your voting records here, you're going to say you're not really a resident of Wyoming, you're a resident of here. So there are some other pieces if you're trying to get around the state's tax.
It's also like if you own stuff. I remember my sister's done the same. She said it's easy to become a resident of Wyoming. It's hard to get rid of being a resident of Utah. So if you've still got land here, you have to get rid of that.
You don't necessarily have to get rid of it. If you just have to make sure that everything is titled correctly, because Utah and Wyoming are very easy because there's no estate tax from the state side, because there's federal estate tax, and then there are states like Washington that anything over 3 million, they're going to take their pound of flesh across the board. So depending on the state you live in, you want to make sure that it is friendly for the day you die as well. So since we're talking about taxes, we're going to talk about where you're at with your taxes. If you'll pull out your pen, your workbook, and draw your finest triangle.
While everyone's doing that, can I ask a quick question about 401k?
Yep.
Is it true that you have to have your spouse as your beneficiary on a 401k?
Depends on the state you live in.
What about Utah?
No.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a quick question back to the power of attorney.
Yep.
I was told that if the power of attorney, once they die, it's no longer good. The minute they die, it's no
Yeah.
longer good.
So are you talking about for the durable, the financial? Okay, yeah, because you're making decisions on their behalf while they're alive. That's where the trustee or the successor trustee steps in and now can take over the actual estate, because you're managing a human versus the estate. The day they die, yes, you need a different thing to make that happen. That's where, I guess, before we hop too far into taxes, I'll go to this. Here are all the things that you want to make sure that you have in your trust. So to your question of saying, can I do it online? These are the things you want to make sure that you have in it. First thing is a pour over will. A pour over will is going to be a catch-all for all unnamed things. Every time you buy, sell, move anything, open up an extra bank account, anything like that that happens, it's automatically going to catch your estate or your assets and put them in your trust. Okay, it's pour over, it catches everything and moves it in. Durable power of attorney manages finances during incapacity. So again, as you said very specifically, if they die, well, they're no longer incapacitated, they're dead. So distinction inside of why that happens. Advanced healthcare directive manages healthcare decisions during it. And then the revocable living trust, the core vehicle to hold assets and avoid probate. And then as we already talked about, is reviewing your beneficiaries to make sure that the right assets go to the right people. And since we're getting into taxes right now, if you're going to leave money to different people, maybe a charity or something like that, you want to make sure that you leave the right asset to the right person or to the right organization. I see this happen quite often, that people go, well, I don't really want the charity to have to deal with the house, so I'm going to give them the house and I'm going to give the kids the 401k because it's liquid money. Can anybody tell me what the problem is with this? Taxes. Very specifically? Yeah, so the charity is never going to pay taxes no matter what type of asset they get. The home gets a step up in basis, so there's no taxes on it. The IRA, if a human receives it, they have to pay taxes at ordinary income, the highest tax rates possible on the whole thing. So in this example, if you wanted to leave it, we want to make sure we flop that. That way, all of your assets go to 100% of your assets go to the people you love and want, and the government gets none of it in that scenario. So how we title things, which assets we give, also matter. When it comes to our taxes, in your bottom left, we're going to write always. Always taxable. This is things like money at the bank. You get a 1099 INT, you put money in a CD, it's 5 years long, you can't touch it, and you still have to pay taxes on it for 5 years. Your dividends that come from your brokerage account, you have your dividends reinvested, but they still show up on your tax return. Where this becomes really punitive is when you turn on your Social Security. So it's already bad enough that you're spending money or you're not spending money and you're having to pay taxes on it. Where it becomes a problem is when you turn on your Social Security can be taxed anywhere from 0 to 85% of your benefit, depending on what shows up on the front page of your 1040. So all the interest from the bank, your dividends that you're not touching, show up on the front page of your 1040. So I have a client, her name is Abby. Abby received an inheritance, and Abby really doesn't like risk. And so she didn't even come in and talk to me. She said, hey, Devin, I'm just going to put the money down at the bank. I've worked with them for 30 years. It's like cheers. When I walk in, everybody knows my name. This is easy. I get 5%. I know who they are. They know who I am. There's no fees. There's no risk. I like this. So when we came around the next year, she's like, Devin, I can't believe my taxes went up $5,000. Say, I didn't spend an extra dime. What happened? Well, the $500,000 at 5% generated $25,000 of 1099 INT that went to the always. But inside of that, the provisional income calculation on how much of your Social Security is calculated or taxed caused another $20,000 of her Social Security that wasn't taxable before to become taxable. So even though she spent $0 extra dollars, it put an extra $45,000 of taxable income in the 1040 calculation. Here's the crazy part, is if we would have taken this and we would have moved it to something like an exchange traded fund that is tax efficient, she could have made that same 5%, not spent it. She wouldn't have got a 1099, it would have shown 0, it would have left the provisional income down at 0, and she would have made the same rate of return and paid no taxes, extra taxes on it. So what we're going to find as we retire inside of our estate going forward, how we hold the money is extra important. When it comes to what we're going to live on, most people save their money in what I call later. This would be your IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP. You put the money in, you never paid taxes, you got a tax deduction, and then when you go to spend it, every dollar you take out is ordinary income. And then even if you don't want to spend it, when you hit the age of 73, there's something called a required minimum distribution, RMD, where the government says, hey, you haven't paid taxes on this in 40 years, it's time for you to pay the piper. We're going to tell you you have to take out 4% of that, and you have to take it out at whatever tax rate you're at, and we get our share of it. We let you defer it, now we want our own. There's a few problems with this, is later distributions, along with your always distributions, they both hit your provisional income that can then cause your Social Security to become taxable. The other one that ends up happening when it comes to health care, that Medicare premium, your IRMA, income monthly related adjustment amount, it is also determined based off of your provisional income, what hits the front page of your 1040. So you're looking at it and you say, Devin, you know what? I need to do a home repair. I need to take some money out. I can go down to the bank and I don't have to pay any taxes when I spend this money. I have to pay taxes when I spend this money. Which dollar do you think you're going to spend first? Well, I know that this is what you're going to do, is the path of least resistance. This one has pain, this one doesn't. Problem is then you get out to age 73, this has continued to defer and become a great big account, and now you have no choice. They're going to tell you how much you have to take out, and every year you get older, they increase that percentage to get higher and higher and higher, which forces your taxes up. Now all of a sudden you're crossing your Medicare threshold, and now your Medicare's costing more. Your tax bracket has pushed you into the new tax bracket. Instead of paying 12%, you're paying 22%, an 83% increase on those dollars. So it really matters.
Well, how do you shelter it?
That's exactly where we're going. Okay, how do we shelter it? Never again. Where can we store our money and invest it that will never be taxable again? We got two answers and they're both correct. First one was permanent life insurance, and the other one was a Roth IRA. Okay. Each one of them have their places, but yes, technical answers for both of them are true. With it, most people that are retired say, Devin, I would have loved to have a Roth, but they didn't come out until 1994. They didn't get added to my 401k until 2006. And I thought you had to have earned income to be able to put money into a Roth. To do a contribution to a Roth, absolutely, you have to have earned income. In 2014, the government changed the tax rules, and it's why your Instagram feed and your Facebook feed has been talking nonstop in the last probably 2 years about something called a Roth conversion. Everybody seen one of those come across your feed? Hey, you hear about it at the lunch table at work, everything like that, Roth conversion. is become popularized because the government removed the restrictions, where before it wasn't really feasible to use, and now it's unlimited. If you wanted to take $1 million from an IRA and move it into a Roth in one day, yes, you'd have to pay the taxes. When I say never, again, is still in here, so you have to pay them at least once. That happened. Now, the other portion is that taxes have never been lower. If you were born in the 1960s, your top federal tax rate was 91% the year you were born. Today, it's 37. Super decrease in the amount of taxes. And you may be thinking to yourself, Devin, yeah, that's for millions of dollars. And that's true back then. But back then, if you had any taxable income, your effective rate of how much tax you'd pay is 22%. Today, for married filing joint, you have to make $400,000 to have an effective 22% tax rate. Taxes have never been cheaper, so there's a pretty well a perfect storm. The government removed the restrictions. They keep trying to pass new tax law to put a cap back on that, because they've understood what they're doing is they lowered taxes down, and now everybody's taking advantage of it, and they're getting less revenue because people are building proactive tax plans of how we move this money from here to here. We don't want to do it all at once. That's a terrible idea. We want to do it systematically. We want to look at things like, are you on Medicare? Well, what's the Medicare limit? Do we want to go up to that? What's the next tax bracket? How do we balance all these moving pieces based off of our always, our dividends, our distributions to live on, our pensions, our rents, and then our conversions inside of it? And so it takes a lot of planning to be able to do this. But I can tell you that this is a very strategic and smart play, because once you get enough money here and you have the appropriate money here, you don't want to convert all of your later money, and I'll explain this right now. We don't really want to keep a ton of money over here in the always, because if we always have to pay taxes, what fun is that? A properly designed income in retirement has distributions from our Social Security, our always, any cash that we may have here, our later out of our IRA, and out of our Roth. As an example, the client that I talked about that is living on $200,000 a year and getting their health care subsidized for the next 5 years until they go on Medicare, when they turn 65, they will not pay taxes most likely for the rest of their life. So I said, is there a reason why we wouldn't want to convert all the money out of later? Well, if you're married filing joint and you get $32,000 a year tax deduction every year that wipes out that much in income tax, do you think I may want to take out $32,000 a year almost exactly out of here because it's free? My standard deduction wipes it out? Great, I want to take $32,000 from here. If that doesn't cause my provisional income to go up where my Social Security is now taxed, well, that's at zero. And then I take my Roth money, which is also at zero, so what did I miss out on? Taxes.
What if you're 70?
Still works. Still works. I have clients that are well into their 80s that are doing this, because here's two pieces. You may never see the benefit in your lifetime of the tax conversions, but that day that you die and now your loved ones get 10 years to distribute it, they have to pay it at their rates, and whatever it may be in the future, because again, tax rates are super low right now. We know what they are. We also have a $38 trillion credit card bill called the national deficit that someday someone's going to say, hey, do you know, we should probably raise taxes because we're not going to cut spending. Can we just agree that they're not going to do that one? Okay. So this is where, even if you're into your 80s, you look at it and say, yeah, I know what it is today. I can pay it at 10, 12, 22%. And then when I die and I pass that asset on in my estate, those people get 10 years of tax-free growth. They could double that money and still pay zero. Oh, everybody's got questions. Okay. You haven't asked any, so we'll go with yours first.
So do you want to move the money from the later to the Roth IRA or the Roth conversion?
So that is the technical term, is you're doing a Roth conversion to move it from an IRA to a Roth IRA. That is the conversion, yep. Now you'd mentioned life insurance. Always money can never be put into a Roth as far as a conversion. That's where inside of this, depending on what the purpose is, permanent life insurance can produce a great place where we can store our money tax-free, grow it tax-free, take it out tax-free, and leave it tax-free, depending on what the purpose of our money is. But we can shelter more from the government using these two strategies here. Yeah, like a whole life, index universal life.
Oh, I was gonna ask about you mentioned your son is a special needs. We have a
Mm-hmm.
that's 30, just turned 36.
Okay.
We haven't got his trust, we haven't got our trust, and it's like, we don't have a will.
So inside of that, especially if you have the needs of making sure that you protect your son inside of it, I would absolutely tell you to go to an actual attorney that you can sit down and say, I need to structure this in a way that I have my trust, and the day that I die, that trust then passes their share of the assets into a special needs trust that somebody else is the trustee over for their benefit. But because it's not their money and it's not touching them and they're not in control of it, the government still deems them to be broke on paper, so they still qualify for their Medicaid, they still qualify for their SSDI, any of that.
We don't have anybody in our kids are not, the other kids are not mature enough to leave, to have them help them,
Yep.
unfortunately.
And then it's friends, family, somebody that you could trust.
Down the line.
Yep, somewhere down the line, and you can change that. Like we used to have that my in-laws were in charge, and then as they've aged as well, now it's my sister. We've continued to transfer that piece. Like our kids were supposed to go to my in-laws. Well, now my in-laws are in their 60s. My sister's 47. Well, my kids, if I die, are going to my sister now. My assets are going to my sister inside of this. So you can change that and update it regularly. Yes, sir.
So on the conversion, is it a dollar amount how much you can convert every year? Or is it a percentage of the year?
So it's an unlimited number that you can use, but there becomes a strategy of where are we at in life? Are we already 73? Are we 65? Are we under 65? Which if you're sitting in this room and you're under 65, Roth conversions, this is the best time to do it because you don't have any Medicare concerns. It doesn't matter how much income you make. It's not going to affect your health care.
So as a strategy, would you go to or figure out how much you made this year and then just go for the tax amount and match it so it's out there?
Ish. There's a lot of different moving pieces. So what I'll tell you is where we were going with this is when people come in, so we're going to offer all of you the ability to come in for a retirement assessment, an estate assessment, where we're going to sit down, go through what all your concerns are, which of the 5 key areas are your concerns of saying, okay, I have my investments, I have concerns about the volatility in the market. Do you know, I don't know how to distribute the money. I don't know how much is safe for me to take out. I don't know enough about taxes that I'm concerned about that I'm going to cause myself more pain if I do my conversions, those types of pieces. We're going to have you sit down, and in that first assessment, there's nothing for sale. You can't buy anything. We're not even going to present anything. What we're going to do is look at your entire estate and look at it and say, could it be better? Because inside of this, there's only 2 outcomes to coming in for the assessment. Either you come into the assessment and you meet with a third-party fiduciary firm that reviews your advisor's work, looks at everything along the line, and says, do you know what? Stamp of approval is a fiduciary. They have to put your interests above their own. You're in a great position. What a great feeling to say, hey, I'm working with somebody that's proficient enough that everything's right where it needs to be. I don't need a planning relationship here. I already have it. Or on the other side, we look at it and say, we find things, like we all just learned about tax tonight, that we're going to go home with dinner plate eyes going, oh my goodness, there's so many moving pieces that nobody's ever talked about. And we look at it and say, if it could be better, would we want it to be? And then what we would do there is we'd say, we've now got a list of all of your assets, where everything's at, what your goals and your concerns are, what your age is, things like that. And we'll invite you back to a second assessment where our certified financial planner, Marie, who's been doing this for 19 years, is actually going to build a mock plan for you of showing you what life would look like as it is right now if you do nothing, and then show you, hey, if we did this much tax planning, how much is it going to save? If we do this much tax planning, how much more are we going to leave to our loved ones? How much more income could we say yes to life with if we felt confident about our income? Most people in this room work with a financial advisor right now. Inside of that, they have their investments, and their investments, what I say, comes out to be 1/5 of a plan. Most people don't have concerns about their investments. But when they look at everything they're doing, they're saying, all of my concerns actually lie outside of my investments. And here's the problem with having a good investment, is it exacerbates and causes all these problems to become more if this continues to grow without a plan. So what we look at it is people pay their financial advisor here locally between 1% and 3% for their advice to manage their assets. Our average client pays between 0.75 and 1.5%, not only just for their investments, but also to have a written retirement income plan, a tax plan, a healthcare plan, and a legacy plan that it's all working together for your benefit. So if we get to the end of the second assessment and we say, yes, we would like to have a planning relationship, we work well together, there's really nothing different than what you're doing now as far as what you're paying for, other than the fact that you now get the areas of your estate that you actually have the concerns in.